Welcome to the Private Practice Elevation Podcast. Unlike other shows about marketing and growing a private practice, only the Private Practice Elevation Podcast takes you into the peaks and valleys of successful practice owners to give you the lessons they learned and the proven strategies that you can apply to your own private practice, helping you reach the next level in your business. I'm your host, Daniel Fava.
If your therapy website isn't ranking the way you hoped, or SEO just feels harder than it used to, today's episode is going to explain why. We're talking about something called YMYL, which stands for Your Money or Your Life. It's the category Google places mental health websites in, and it means your site is held to a much higher standard than most industries. In this episode, I'm joined by our lead SEO specialist, Michael McDaniel, and we're breaking down what YMYL actually means, how Google evaluates therapy websites now, and what simple changes you can make to build more trust with both Google and potential clients. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Xanda is practice management software built for health practitioners. It brings scheduling, telehealth, secure notes, billing, AI, and automation together in one simple system. If you're ready to make your practice management easier, visit privatepracticeelevation.com/Xanda and start your free trial today. A year from today, what would your dream private practice look like? Would you spend less time chasing claims or only working with clients who value your skill set? What if you had more time for yourself? Alma empowers you to confidently accept insurance backed by an all-in-one EHR that simplifies scheduling, documentation, and day-to-day practice operations. Your dream practice is closer than you think. To learn more about Alma and receive 2 free months, visit helloalma.com/elevation.
All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Daniel here. And as always, I'm excited. I'm especially excited for today's conversation, today's episode, all about Google and all the changes that Google's been making. So yeah. And today is also, as I'm recording this, today is my oldest son, Samuel's 9th birthday. I can't believe that he's 9 already. But we're having a fun day and excited for when he gets home from school today, so that we can continue to play and we can continue to celebrate him and just really love that kid. He's so creative, and he got his big gift this year was a Chromebook. Because he's really getting into, he wants to have his own YouTube channel. He's super creative. So he's really into origami. So he wants to teach people how to do origami on his YouTube channel. It's so cute. It's so sweet. So yeah, so it's a fun day over here in the Fava household. And yeah, today is just a special day because we have Private Practice Elevation's very own lead SEO specialist, Michael, on the podcast. I've been asking him for some time. We got to get you on the podcast. And you'll see why as you listen to this conversation, because Michael is just a wealth of information. He's really been in the SEO space since it really started, and he shares a little bit about his journey. But since he's been in that space for so long, he's just got so much information, so much wisdom. And so you're going to get a lot of helpful tips in this episode that you can apply to your website. You're going to understand a little bit more about the landscape of Google and AI search, how things have been changing, how you can really craft your content for 2026 and beyond, and these changes with AI and Google, so that you can increase your trustworthiness, increase your visibility, and ultimately reach more of your clients. So hope you enjoy this episode. Here's my conversation with Michael McDaniel. Alrighty, well, I am super excited to have Michael McDaniel on the Private Practice Elevation podcast. Finally, how are you doing, Michael?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing good. So Michael is our lead SEO specialist here at Private Practice Elevation. Super excited about just the work you've been doing, Michael. And, I know that over the last year, we've worked pretty closely on revamping a lot of how we do things because of how Google and now AI is doing things. So excited to just share your wealth of knowledge and wisdom with the audience. And before we get into our topic today, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Just a little bit of your professional background and how you came to be in this world of SEO and online visibility.
Well, I started doing web design. I actually started web design in 2001, 2002, which was way before search optimization was a thing. And so going through all the web design stuff, gave me a good backbone for, websites, how they work and all that stuff. And then Google incorporates, and now we have search engines and search optimization, sort of blew up at one point and became its own industry. And so I kind of started in with that kind of from the ground basically. And
Hmm.
I've gone through most iterations of Google's algorithm all the way through where we are now, which is AI. So I have been doing this for quite a while. Lots of little tips and tricks and little things that I picked up along the way. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, going through all of those changes and all that history. But I think that's really, I mean, you've been just such a wealth of knowledge for our clients and for me too, because when you came on board, it was kind of like at the forefront of things were kind of shifting. AI hadn't really like blown up just yet, but we saw kind of the beginnings of that a little bit. And I couldn't keep up, because there's a lot that I'm doing. So it was like, I need someone who's a specialist. And so, yeah, just so excited to have you on board and the work that you're doing. So appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I've loved it.
Good, good. Awesome. Well, let's get into today's topic. One of the main reasons I wanted to have you on is because of the shifts that have been happening over the last year and a half-ish, yearish, with Google and AI and just kind of like what is working now and what are those, shifts that have happened, in terms of getting a private practice website to do well on search in AI, have that visibility. So today we're specifically diving into something I don't think a lot of people know about, and that is the YMYL category. And some people may have never even heard that. What is YMYL? So why don't we kind of start at the beginning? What is YMYL mean, and why is it important for therapists to know about this category and topic?
So a lot of people don't realize that there even are categories, but
Yeah.
YMYL, it sounds like an acronym and most people don't, really like, well, what is it? Because they don't know the industry and acronyms. But it's actually one of the most important things for like a therapist specifically to understand. It stands for your money or your life. So basically what happens is Google categorizes like certain topics as like high stakes.
Hmm.
So like if you search for a sourdough bread recipe or something like that and it's wrong, then that's great. You get bad bread. But like if someone searches for how to treat postpartum depression or look for PTSD symptoms and you get bad advice, that can turn into like a real world disaster.
Yeah.
So since therapists deal with people's mental health, their safety, Google and most AI crawlbots now, the way that they categorize things, are going to put your website in this YMYL bucket. So it means that the algorithm isn't just looking for keywords or information, it's looking for proof that you're not full of it. That's what it's
Hmm.
basically doing. So it matters in 2026 so much because the internet, we're being flooded with AI generated health content, gurus on everything from weight loss to therapy. So, the content all starts to sound the same.
Hmm.
So Google and search's response has been to get super aggressive about how they and why they trust a site. So if your site doesn't clearly show that you're a real licensed human that knows what you're talking about, then Google's just going to hide you to play it safe. So,
Hmm.
kind of for a therapist, understanding why MYL and why you're in that bucket is basically the difference between, like, being a trusted authority that people find or being completely invisible because Google feels the need to protect people from your site.
Right. So it sounds like this is really about the standards of the content that goes on a website, and this ties into, and I've spoken about this in the podcast before, the EEAT, showing your expertise, your trustworthiness, authority, and all that sort of stuff. But it's also like it's an extra stand to me. It's like an extra standard on top of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean it's just a different level than some other sites. So it's if you think about it sort of like a hierarchy, the YMYL category is kind of one of the highest, standards that you have to
Hmm.
kind of live up to when you're putting this sort of content out there and saying I'm an expert, I'm going to tell you how to manage anxiety at home in between appointments. with this blog article, you're just held to a standard saying, look, I'm not just going to show this to anybody because I don't know if you're going to tell them good things or bad things. And so you have to hold yourself to this really high standard online, just like you would in real life seeing a patient.
And I think too, like this fits in, I think, so well with, what therapists do. And I know that a lot of people are struggling with their online visibility, but I think at the end of the day, like this is a good thing that Google is really honing in, because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, people find the help, the mental health help that they really need. And so I think it's good that we're having these, we're held to these higher standards, because we want to make sure that, we're putting really good content out there. And let's kind of talk about that a little bit. Like what type of content fits into this category? Like what is Google looking for on a therapist's website when it comes to this higher standard that it holds a therapy website to?
So that's kind of a big question. So for 2026, Google doesn't look for a textbook, kind of like it used to, where it's sort of like keywords and topics and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's like you could kind of have like sort of a textbook blog section or something like that. But what it's looking for is it's looking for the practitioner. So whether you're a group practice or an individual practice, it's looking for that expert voice behind the content. So if you want to rank well in YMYL world and in the YMYL world, your content needs to kind of like do, and I put together 3 things that I wanted to tell you guys. Like, so you have to prove that you're a real human. That's the experience signal, right?
Hmm.
So Google is kind of obsessed with firsthand experience and knowledge because it makes you real and it makes you a person. So instead of writing like a generic post, like, saying what is CBT? So if that's your blog article and you're trying to explain what CBT is, we write more now like what a first CBT session looks like in my office, because that's a human question. That's showing your
Yeah.
experience. You're talking about your office, stuff like that. We use original photos. We talk about real world observations. In my 20 years of treating clients with, I have seen blank. So when AI, summarizes things, like AI can summarize a Wikipedia page, like that's fine, but it can't tell a client what it feels like to sit on your couch. So that human touch is a massive search signal right now.
Mm.
The second thing is you want to lean into your bio, your about page, your bio page. It's like generally it should be about the second most viewed page on most sites. And it is for most of our clients because Google's going to treat it that way. So you need to really, really lean into that bio. Back in the day, we wouldn't lean in, but so hard because talking about yourself too much and whatnot, again, keywords and whatnot, we built up the bios, but it was a different way of doing it. So
Yeah.
now we don't just list your degree, include a license number or specific certifications and things, EMD, Gottman, whatnot. We include like everything. So we include, your degree. We do include all those license numbers. We include your certifications. We include your professional directories. Any of the places that you're listed, Psychology Today, your NPI numbers, things like that. We put those in your bio because Google can source those, and AI search bots, because we're not just optimizing for Google anymore, can see those and they can go out and they can say, okay, look, I can find these verified things to say this person is an expert in their field.
Yeah.
The third thing is you want to answer scary questions. This is the helpful signal. People don't just search for depression anymore because we don't search by keywords. We search AI by questions. So people might search for, how do I tell my boss I'm struggling? Will my insurance cover my therapy? Those are scary questions. And we shy away from those sometimes because we tend to feel like that puts us in a box, especially that insurance question. If you're a private pay practice,
Hmm.
people tend to feel like that turns people off, but that is a trust signal for search. So when you answer those things clearly, Google rewards that content and it provides like immediate clear answers. So they reward that content. You're going to get shown more and those questions are going to get answered because you're hitting these specific pain points.
Right.
And the last thing I'll say, a big tip is, you want to add an FAQ section to all of your service pages. Use exact questions that clients ask you. So when someone comes in, sits on your couch or calls you for that first, consultation, the questions that they ask you, use those on the
Yeah.
site because those are the questions people are asking. So it doesn't help. Doesn't only help with the people always ask section in Google results, but it allows all of the other AI crawlers to source these questions and use you as that answer.
Yeah. And I think that just listening to those tips, which are super helpful, I think I'm thinking about like that is the shift. Like the shift has been from so keyword focused. And I know that we run into this sometimes with just, educating our clients, because many of of our clients or maybe listeners have heard throughout the years, like it's all about the keyword. I want to rank for depression in Atlanta, which is a good goal, but it's not the whole story. It used to be we just create a page, just super detailed about depression in Atlanta, but now we're getting more of that human touch, which I think is great. And it's more about answering those specific questions and not just filling your website with information, because anyone can go to Wikipedia or whatever and learn about depression or depression counseling, but we need to really find those people who are searching with the intent of finding a therapist, not just information. I think that's my way of kind of summarizing like what you just said, and some of like the shift. It's much more human focused on what people are actually searching for.
Yeah, so I mean, when we think about intent, that's kind of our conversion optimization, right? So we want to find those intent-driven questions and queries. With AI search is it's generative search. It's a generative experience. So I don't just go in and type depression Atlanta anymore. I type I'm struggling with depression. Who's the best depression therapist in Atlanta? And that's what people
Right.
are typing in, things like that. And so AI is now giving people these answers. And what we're seeing is people are trusting these answers almost like their friend told them. So when
Hmm.
that traffic hits your site, someone asks an AI a question and AI says, oh, this therapist, blah, 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 and they go to your site, we're seeing that the engagement rate is more like a warm audience. Like a friend recommended you, so you're not a cold entry anymore. You're not trying to
Yeah.
figure this therapist out. You feel like you already know this therapist because they were recommended. So that's why, even non-intent based questions are great, because when AI suggests you, that becomes the intent.
Right. Yeah. So you're getting pulled into those snippets in Google and you're being cited. And yeah, it's so interesting. And I know that for us too at PPE, and like, I see every new lead that comes in, and we are seeing a lot more people say ChatGPT recommended you. And it's kind of cool to see. It's fun. And I'm glad we're doing something right. So
Absolutely.
that's working. And yeah, those folks are warmer, because they've been doing research, they've been, talking with AI, and yeah, and so that's really like, the goal is to get in these searches and hopefully convert people at a higher level.
Hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about like, we talked about, just bring it back to these YMYL guidelines. So what happens if you kind of ignore these guidelines? Like, what are some of the maybe mistakes that you see people make?
So this sort of tough love conversation, I do have this with clients a lot. If you ignore the YMYL, and there's ways that you can do that. And you can do it unintentionally too, like by not leveraging your expertise. And I see this with group practices sometimes where they don't want to highlight a therapist's name per se, because maybe, they might have contracted that article and that therapist didn't particularly write it. So they feel some kind of way about it. But, working that out with your staff, because ignoring that type of stuff is kind of ignoring the YMYL category. So you're not necessarily going to get like a red flag or some kind of formal penalty from Google, because they don't do that with that type of stuff. What it's kind of more like is a silent demotion. So Google's job is to protect users. That's their whole point. That's why, spam sites and everything. So
Yeah.
if your site doesn't have the trust signals like we talked about, clear credentials, medically backed info, you write a blog post, but you don't put any credentials on it, Google views you as more of a liability. But in
Hmm.
a high stakes category like therapy, Google would rather show nothing at all than risk showing a user something that's inaccurate. So, when you're putting out content, you're like, man, none of my stuff is showing up. You have to kind of look at this and say, well, are you proving to Google that you should be saying this, or does it feel like it's protecting people from you?
Hmm.
So, you get the invisible blog, syndrome. You could spend 20 hours writing the most beautiful, helpful posts on trauma if you want, but if Google doesn't see the receipt, it's going to post you on page 20 or not at all, and AI is not going to cite you.
Yeah.
So those AI overviews, those summaries that you see at the top of the search page, they're super, super picky, like very picky. They only pull from the top 1% of trusted entities. So if you skip all
Wow.
the MYL stuff, you're 100% pretty much guaranteed to be left out, which is where most traffic goes now. Um, Plus, if you're spending money on ad, it's a waste, because if you're paying for ads and Google looks at your landing page quality and your site fails the YMYL trust, Google might actually charge you more per click because they view your page as less relevant or less safe for a user.
Wow.
So there's all these kind of silent penalties that go in stuff that you don't really know. Now, Google changes this stuff constantly, and over the next year and a half or so, it's going to be changed a lot. So the core idea of this is not going anywhere. It's just the implementation and the way they do it might change as AI picks up, because in 2028, we're saying AI search is going to be the standard and traditional search is going to be out the window.
Hmm.
Um, but the takeaway from this is not to be scared. These kind of things should motivate you. Ignoring the rules hurts your SEO and makes it almost impossible to compete. But on the flip side, because so many people do ignore them, the ones that actually follow these guidelines, it can turn into one of your biggest competitive advantages.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just to kind of like ask a follow up that is hopefully like a tip for someone, is this as like simple as, for a starting point, as including if you do have, your team writing blog posts, including this blog post was written by Liz Fava and, has a little bio about who she is. And then you can click that and go over to her bio, rather than, which I've seen on some other group sites, it's like, on a WordPress site, it says article by Fava Counseling, and just like this generic, the name of the practice. So we want to highlight who actually wrote this as a human and here's their credentials and all that good stuff.
So there's two ways to do it. Attributing it to an actual human, like a blog post or something, will tend to work a little bit better. So you don't have to go too in depth in it, but usually at the top of an article, you'll see like by Liz Fava with credentials that links to her bio and like a 1-sentence byline. Liz Fava is a Gottman trained counselor with over 20 years experience or whatnot. And so you have just like a little sentence byline. And what that does right at the top of the article is gives the crawlers like everything they need to know that, okay, this was written by a person. Usually if you don't have a standard author bio that just shows up on your blogs or something like that, so if you're like a group practice, sometimes we'll put an about the author towards the bottom so people can read more about it, and we want that expertise in there with maybe some links to some licensures or something like that. And so you kind of reinforce that with a little bit more information. And within the blog post and your service pages, again, you want to use that wording like, in my 20 years of working with couples I've seen. Those little sentences and tidbits kind of like link your bio to the real person and sort of finish that knowledge graph of who you are in that particular blog article. The second way that you can do it is you can do an entity-based authorship, which means you build the credentials, you build the expertise around the entity, the business itself, so that you create like an author and almost bio for the business. You have to do this very carefully, though. You have to really play with the way that you link the credentials and the therapist to like your business about page. It's a little bit harder to do just because now you're asking Google to attribute your staff's expertise to the business entity, then give that to a blog article. So you can do an entity-based authorship if you want to. It just takes a little more cultivation.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, let's, we kind of touched on some of this stuff, but what are some like simple things that people can do to like really start improving these YMYL signals? I know we touched on a few already, but do you have any more sort of quick wins that people can take away from this conversation?
Yeah. So like some low effort, high impact changes. You don't always need a total website redesign or anything when you want to start winning in a YMYL category. So like you can do things like make your footer a foundation. So you look at the bottom of your website. It's got your practice name, usually your physical address, telephone number, and stuff. If it doesn't have that stuff, you 100% want it there. Google uses your footer to verify like your real world entity. Where are you? Are you real? Where can I find you? Make sure your license type, LCSW, PhD, whatever, is right there in the copyright line or down at the bottom. So where like you have your entity. So, if you're the founder or something like that, you can link your credentials to that. It's a tiny little detail that just sort of like screams out, I'm a legitimate professional. Like we talked about optimizing your bio. Don't just write about your philosophy. Get super specific. Talk, your license number, obviously you're state board certified. Where are you certified? Use your numbers, link to anything that you can link to. All of your specializations and stuff, if you can, link out to state licensing boards and stuff like that. People get it in their head that offsite links take people away from your site, but they don't. Most people don't necessarily click on them. It just in their mind, it says, oh, they put a link there, so it's real. A Google bot or a search bot will follow that link and verify you.
Right.
So for search purposes, it's a world of difference. For people, they tend to just ignore it. But it does help Google and search bots connect the dots. I have two more, or actually, I have three more quick ones I'll give you. Add a crisis resource block. So when you write a blog post and you talk about really like um, mental health problems like, PTSD, even on your trauma service pages, put a small block in your footer or on your contact page or sometimes at the bottom of these blog posts, with your, like 988 around here is, your suicide crisis line, put your version of it there wherever you are, to a local crisis center. Give links to different resources that people can find if they're in crisis at that moment. Because unless you're like a 24-hour immediate, like a mental health service, they might be hitting your site at a time that you can't do anything. And that
Yeah.
shows Google and your visitors that you prioritize safety and clinical responsibility.
Wow.
So that's going to help you with clicks. We talked about the blog bylines. I won't go too much in those because I had written that one down, but make sure you do add the blog bylines. It's real world evidence. And the last thing, again, people get caught up in this when we add these to blog posts because they're like, do we really want to send people off site? But quote experts. Write your blog posts, and when you're writing that blog post, don't just give your opinion. Drop in a link to a study on the NIH or an article from the, or even if like the Gottman website, or if there is a widely known psychologist that you like or follow and they've said something about the same thing, link to them and let the world, including the search bots, know that I didn't just pull this out of thin air. Now, if it's your own opinion, that's fine. But if it's research backed, let everyone know this is research backed and here's the evidence.
Yeah. Awesome. Those are anyone can pull from one, two, or all of those and apply to their website. So thank you for that. I know that we could just continue to talk about SEO and all the different aspects of it forever, but we do need to wrap up, land the plane here. So what's sort of, I don't know, how do you want to end this conversation, Michael? Like what's like the one thing you want to see people prioritize, or maybe like the main takeaway from, understanding how content has shifted, these higher standards that Google holds a therapist website to? Like what's that key takeaway that you want to leave folks with?
The big key takeaway is that we are talking directly to the question because that's what people are searching. So we're not anymore hitting these keywords, talking points, things like that. We are directly talking to the human. We're giving them the most helpful and accurate advice that we can, which includes links to crisis hotlines, link to this, so we're trying to include literally everything that one person could ever need just by hitting your site. We want to make sure that with all of the information that we put out there, that it's verifiable, that we are the voice behind it, or you as the therapist are the voice behind it, that's verifiable, and that basically you go down this checklist of, for a search bot and a human, does this person have the credentials to tell me this stuff? Is it good advice? Yes, I want to listen to it. And what you're doing is you're not just building a good search platform, on your site. You're literally building something that people will rely on, that people will come back to, that people will trust. And that's going to be one of the biggest things going in 2026 with AI search is trust, trust, trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Michael. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I know I feel like this is one of those episodes that people are just going to go back to and listen a few times. And, for anyone listening, this may also sound overwhelming. So, obviously this is stuff that we love to do, stuff that Michael loves to do. So, if you're curious to understand a little bit more about how private practice elevation can help you build these trust signals and reach more of your ideal clients, we would love to help you. So just go to our website, privatepracticeelevation.com, and you can schedule a 15-minute call. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. It was fun.
Well, I hope that this episode was helpful to you as you kind of navigate this whole landscape of online visibility, SEO, AI optimization. Things have really changed a lot over the last year. And, I hope that this has been super helpful. It was helpful to me to have a conversation with Michael and just understand just the change in the landscape, the change of how we create content for therapy websites. And it really all comes back to this your money or your life category and the standard that Google holds it to. So I'm just hopeful that you really received a lot of tips, quick wins, things that you could apply to your own SEO strategy. And as always, if you would like help with that strategy, if you need help understanding what your visibility or lack thereof looks like right now, we'd love to help you. We do that with our SEO assessments. And you can go to privatepracticeelevation.com to learn what goes into an assessment and how long it takes and what you're going to uncover when you go through an assessment. So we'd love to talk to you about that. So thanks so much for listening to the Private Practice Elevation Podcast. Now go elevate your practice.
I'd like to thank Alma for sponsoring this episode of the Private Practice Elevation Podcast. A year from today, what would your dream private practice look like? Would you spend less time chasing claims or only working with clients who value your skill set? What if you had a network to reach out to for questions or free continuing education? What if you had more time for yourself? Alma empowers you to confidently accept insurance backed by an all-in-one EHR that simplifies scheduling, documentation, and day-to-day practice operations. With a network of engaged providers and free CE resources, Alma makes it easy for you to build the practice of your dreams on your terms. Alma believes that when therapists get the support they need, mental health care gets better for everyone. Learn more about Alma at helloalma.com/elevation. Your dream practice is closer than you think. Get started now and receive 2 free months at helloalma.com/elevation. Running a private practice can feel like a juggling act. You're the clinician, the scheduler, the biller, and even the IT department. Xanda makes it all easier. Xanda is practice management software built for health practitioners. It brings scheduling, telehealth, secure client notes, billing, AI, and payments into one easy-to-use system. Clients can book appointments online, receive automated reminders, and access a secure client portal while you manage everything from one dashboard. That means fewer administrative headaches and a smoother experience for everyone. If you're ready to spend less time on admin and more time with clients, visit privatepracticeelevation.com/Xanda to start your free trial.